Hey, Pete, have you ever been fascinated by the allure of secret societies throughout history?
Are you kidding me right now, Andy? I live for this stuff. From the Freemasons to the Illuminati, I am obsessed with these clandestine groups. The Rosicrucians and their ancient wisdom, the Skull and Bones Society at Yale with its powerful alumni network. I'm drawn to them. There's something about how they offer this exclusive access to hidden knowledge. They totally capture my imagination. It's like they give this sense of belonging to something greater than oneself.
Wow, sounds like you're looking for one yourself.
Do you even need to ask? Where do I sign? How much blood do I have to give? Are there any required tattoos or brands involved? Is it my first or second born that they need?
Well, what if I told you that there's a secret society for film lovers right here at the Next Reel family of film podcasts, all proud members of the True Story FM network, and you don't have to give any blood or either of your kids?
You've got my attention, Andy. What can you tell me about this cinematic brotherhood?
When you become a member of the Next Reel family, you gain access to a treasure trove of exclusive content, early episode releases, and a community of passionate film enthusiasts who share your love for movies. It's like being initiated into a secret order where you're privy to the inner workings of our shows, including the Next Reel, the Film Board, Movies We Like, Sitting in the Dark, and CinemaScope.
But Andy, as a member, will I unlock a world of bonus content from extended conversations and behind-the-scenes insights to exclusive pre-show and post-show discussions that expand the conversations about the films we love?
Why, yes, the true power of this secret society lies in its community. As a member, you'll join an exclusive group within our Discord community where you can engage in clandestine conversations with other passionate film fans in our members-only channels.
But what about live recordings, Andy? The sacred rituals of any good cinematic order. Will these episodes be scheduled in advance so that members like me will know when to gather around the virtual pyre in real time via YouTube?
Ah, yes. Perhaps the greatest secret of all is that by becoming a member, you're not just investing in your own entertainment, you're also supporting the tireless work of our independent creators and helping to keep the magic of cinema alive and well. So if you're ready to join this elite group of film lovers and unlock the secrets of cinema, head over to truestory.fm/join. For just $5 a month or $55 a year, you will gain access to a world of exclusive content, engaging discussions, and a community that shares your passion for movies. Head to truestory.fm/join to sign up.
Andy, I can't wait for you to welcome me into the inner circle of the Next Reel family of film podcasts. I'll see you in the secret chambers. Now, when do I get my ring?
Well, we don't actually offer rings with your membership.
Tattoos or brands? When can I do that?
No tattoos.
Secret handshakes?
Tell you what, you and I can come up with our own secret handshake, okay?
No, I mean, at the very least.
Before we dive in, here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts.
Ever wondered what happens when a Zoomer who grew up on the Clone Wars,
a millennial Anakin defender,
and a grumpy old Gen Xer walk into a cantina to talk Star Wars?
Then we've got the podcast for you.
Star Wars Generations is a place for fans of all backgrounds to come together, talk about why we love the franchise, and what we can learn from each other.
With so much new Star Wars content coming out, we take a deep dive into all of it. We talk stories and characters, what we learn about the Force and the Empire, Republics old and new, and how each story adds to the larger picture.
Besides episode-by-episode coverage of the new shows, we've been going back to watch the movies in release order. We talk about Star Wars novels and video games, along with fan content and cosplay.
And with each episode, we're just starting the conversation, and we hope you jump in. We'll read your feedback, answer your questions. We've even had full episodes dedicated to questions raised by listeners like you.
You can find us under Star Wars Generations on your favorite podcast app, or by going to theethicalpanda.com. May the Force be with you.
Now this is podcasting.
Meet Zinnia.
You are being very polite to someone who is attempting to kill us.
Her wife, Saffron.
You know I'm wildly, madly in love with you.
And their best friend, Goldie.
Glad we didn't miss all the fun.
Swords in hand, they defend their city from the worst of humanity.
I am Lord Buxton Blue.
Equity Electric.
Herr Haig. Virgil Walcott. Vicious Suave.
Follow their adventures on the Swashbuckling Ladies Debate Society audio drama podcast. Available now at truestory.fm/swashbuckling.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Sitting in the Dark, our monthly podcast about horror movies and ideas. I'm your host, Tom W. Metz III, and joining me, as always... Oh, shoot. Okay, sorry, guys. My post-recording Uber Eats fentanyl is here early. Just hold on one second. I will be right back. I'll just let my co-host fill in. Boys and ghouls! It's me, your ghost host, back for another edition of Spitting Din the Shark! Sharks are scary! If you think I'm the only corpse here, then you're dead wrong and have made a grave mistake. Like every week, spelled W-E-E-A-K, so spooky! There are 3 other ghost hosts on this fraud gas. Oh, gas like you've been gassed to death! First, we have one of the TrueStory.fm flounders. I mean founders! Flounders are scary because they're so easy to overcook. Put your glands together for Pete Wright. I mean Pete Wright. Next up is the pro stressor himself, dead of the class, mean spiz fleece mask. I mean Kynan Dias. That totally worked. And last but not least, the bearded chunder himself, Kyle Olson. Soul spelled S-O-L-E because it's another scary fish that's so easy to overcook. I mean Kyle Olson. And now that I've lost my voice, I'll give it back to my deader half. Vom double pew past the turn. Goodbye, boys and girls. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. Today, we are talking about one of my favorite genres of horror movies, haunted house movies, or what I'm talking about, as will be understood in a second, haunted spaces movies. This episode is called Location, 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 a discussion of haunted spaces and the haunted people within. What do you guys think about haunted house stories or haunted space stories moving in? Is this something that you gravitate to, or are you more, because like Kyle, I know you're more of like a monster person. Where does this lie in your general gravitate towards or away from?
No, I love ghost stories. I love the haunted houses and all those things. I've seen from the really high budget ones that don't work at all to the really crappy ones that people just running out with the camera that are extremely effective. Right. So yeah, I was super excited when I saw
that was the remake of The Haunting and then The Innocent.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Great. Kynan, Pete, do you guys have any overall thoughts?
Well, it's interesting, right? The haunted house movie is so foundational it's become even cliche. And I was wondering, as you were presenting this idea to us last week, like, is there really anything new to say about that? And sure. I think you found 3 movies that do very interesting jobs in different directions. Even of, okay, we have a space that is unclean in some way, and it's the space itself where the horror comes from. And I was surprised by some of them. These were all new to me, so I got a little lesson in maybe not throwing out the cliche with the bathwater or however you want.
Okay. Excellent. That makes sense. Pete.
This is, so we've talked about my absolute love of home invasion movies. Mm-hmm. I which I don't, just so if you haven't listened to that episode, that's a sharp edge of horror that really gets to me. And I think paranormal stories get to me in kind of the same way, just because I don't know if I grew up sort of sensitive to the dark, right? If I have kind of an overactive maybe imagination, why that cockamamie movie you made us watch, that I watched in the headset, that's really just pointing a camera at a corner for 2.5 hours.
Skinamarink, everybody.
That was. I found that effective because I think I see the patterns in the wallpaper move. I'm one of those people, so I'm affected, and I think I'm with Kynan. Like, I think you found 3 movies here that do something fun and different, and one is such a hard swing that it's like one of my favorite movies. Like I had such a good time with all 3 of these. I thought were really, really great, and I had low expectations for 2 of them.
Yes.
So
sure.
Yeah.
That's the Tommy promise. From the producers that brought you Mothman. Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad that this will, and if you guys found, I have sort of a basic idea that isn't terribly profound, but don't let that just be the only
path for the conversation. If you found other connections, other things that open this up, of course, that's why I really wanted to call this a discussion versus a whatever the opposite of a dissertation. Yeah, exactly right. So I love haunted house stories. And one of the things that I like about them is there's one level where you think about haunted house stories and people think about them as regular everyday people go into a haunted space and are bedeviled by spirits that are already there. But, and again, I don't think this is terribly profound, but I do find it interesting that so many haunted house tales, and very much these three, and then going back to films like The Shining, like The Innocents, which was Turned to the Screw, so many haunted house movies are actually about, it's not just about people going into a new situation and being pressured by force. It's because of their own inner turmoil beforehand, usually caused by trauma of a terrible living situation or loss. These people are already haunted. They are haunted before they step over the threshold. And as a result, the supernatural forces which are there, they are already almost like raw nerves. They are already accidentally open up to harm or contact because they're already haunted by this past trauma, and it makes them susceptible to it. And in most places, in most movies, I would like to posit where people suffer in haunted spaces, I believe one commonly occurring thing is that the people are already, that what they're being haunted by is either the denial of death, repression, or both. That the idea that they're going in with so much baggage from one or both of those things that they are just lining up to be haunted and to be toyed with. And I think that is seen in different ways in all three of these movies. Do we think, again, I don't think that I'm breaking a new thought here, but do we think that idea has merit? Is it too obvious, or is it worth sort of talking about?
I think the best ones match up to that criteria. I like as you're going through, Lisa, I was sort of thinking of ones that fall outside the pattern.
Right.
And some of them do work. Like Poltergeist is sort of, this family is pretty innocent in terms of what is, and yet still gets haunted.
Sure.
But I think the ones that the movies that was as sort of like that's sort of like a thrill ride, as opposed to these sort of more psychological, like you getting into stuff. These especially that we have the ones today, really get into that stuff where there's a lot more going on, and then ghosts show up, as opposed to everything is boring until the ghosts show up.
And you could say, if you want to be completely pretentious, and I do, that the family in Poltergeist is already haunted by the 80s. They're haunted by expansion, by eminent domain. They're haunted by all the terrible ways that we treat people that came before us. You know, just you just move the headstones, that they are victims to things that were done before. So they were already sort of left defenseless as a result.
Where does Ghosts of Girlfriends Past fit into this?
Oh, that was our first movie. No, that was not.
Yeah, there's a screenwriting book that's one of those popular screenwriting books right now, which is Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. Do you know that one? He wrote Blank Check, and like one of the things that he does is most screenwriting books are like this, like everything can be reduced down to 2 stories, 1 story. So he has a couple of genres, and one of his is the monster in the house story, and most of his examples are this haunted house idea. But he says, it could also apply to other things. But, you go into a space, and in that space, there's something terrible. You can't get out of the space until you've defeated that thing. So you could extrapolate that towards, psychological problems of your own. So yeah, it's movies like The Fly or The Exorcist or what have you, but also movies like Whiplash is one of the examples there, right? You go into this Juilliard space, and until you defeat Fletcher, you can't get out of this. Or what about Bob? Or, like you go and take on this thing, and until you solve the problem of the house, the haunted house in this case, right? You don't get to solve the problem yourself, or vice versa. Like they become keys to each other.
I love that. That makes a ton of sense. And the fact that, that you are inexorably connected to it. And if you add on to that you're going in damaged.
Right.
That if your defenses are down, I mean, that's what Smile is. That's what Midsommar is. That's what all of the new movies, Babadook, something that I talked about on another podcast recently, is about. Why is the ghost let in? It's because you are an open vessel, unfortunately, for it. Before we start talking about the movies, did you have anything up top, Pete, that you wanted to say? Or I can introduce the movies?
Well, I was just trying to make a connection that I don't think actually exists there. But the thing that we're going to talk about with the first movie is I'll see if it plays out. It's this idea that, one of the reasons it works, these movies in general work, is that the environment itself contributes to the plausibility of the sort of the psychological breakdown, right? It's plausible at some points in these movies that there's no haunting at all, but that we're like, everybody's just huffing asbestos. Well, it's not all of these movies, but really the first one leans heavily in that direction. And I find that so much more effective than I expected to, for sure, and certainly than the the Casper era of hauntings.
Sure. The Ghost with the Heart of Gold. Yeah. Okay, so then let's dive in. The three movies that I suggested were Brad Anderson's Session 9, Mike Flanagan's Ouija, Origin of Evil, and what's his name? Who directed
Alejandro Amenábar.
Uses the others. Make his voice sound like mine. I just realized I didn't put them up on top. Yeah, so let's start with the first one. And this is the reason that I keep painfully saying haunted spaces instead of haunted houses, is because the very first one, Session 9, takes place in an insane asylum, or what we would call like a sanitarium. This is known for being the first movie, one of the first feature films using a 24p HD video camera. So it's video versus film, but it had that in between film and video look, because it was the first time they could film in 24 frames per second instead of regular video, which is of course 30 frames per second. And yes, to talk about the idea of the location really being a character. Sex and the City likes to say that New York is a character.
This is a character.
It takes place at the fictional Danvers mental hospital. It was actually filmed in the Kirkbride Institute, named after someone who was a primary founder of the Association of Medical Superintendents of, and then the rest. Superintendents of American Institutions for the Insane. So that's a sweet acronym that still holds up. It really was built around, from what little I've read about it, they just walked through everything that wasn't completely condemned and then made the movie around that, which is a sweet way to do it if you can. What did you guys think about this movie?
That's what I like about this show and doing it with you all. I mean, I would not have discovered this. I think I had not heard of it. Maybe if I was doing a Brad Anderson like deep dive and going through his whole filmography or something, but I was really quite blown away by it. It is the atmosphere. It is following these men in what this place that looks like a real place, and giving them a job that is a real job, and watching them, and like Kyle was saying, like, it's interesting before ghosts show up. It's just really cool to watch these people do this job and have their own psychological issues, and then we get scary stuff on top of it. So it didn't feel like we were mismatching this or like jamming, hey, we got this really cool location, let's find something creepy to do here. Everything really works well together.
That's excellent. Pete or Kyle, just to start us off again?
I really enjoyed this movie. And also David Caruso is in it. And I can't watch David Caruso without thinking of South Park. Like David Caruso's career. Anyway, if you know, you know. I'm just saying, David Caruso takes this very, very seriously, and I am here for it. I thought it was great. The fact that he's in it with Paul Guilfoyle, it's like a CSI kind of weird reunion in the mental hospital.
They went into this real space, and there were the real gurneys and the real medical equipment that were there, and the real pictures of David Caruso taped to the wall at that christening. There's like, what a coincidence. This is wonderful. So odd.
You know what? We should film here.
We should film here.
David Caruso just signed on.
I think that the thing, this is the one that got me thinking about how effective it is when you let the location be the haunting location that it already is. The totally bare bones. We're just going to point a camera at some visqueen that's lit from behind, and it's going to scare the pants off you, and you're going to love it. Like, I just thought that was incredibly effective. I don't think it. I mean, I think Peter Mullen is just fantastic as the slowly breaking character Gordo, as we get through this, and I found it really effective. I found all the motivations really, really effective. I found nothing in this movie took me out of the movie, which is really gratifying.
One of the things that makes the movie work so well for me is the fact that it is on 24p HD video. It makes it feel in the same way, in a different way, that found footage films can make it seem less safe. This makes it seem less safe. There's less artifice to hide behind. It's all like so much natural light, and it just looks grittier and more there, almost like a home movie, compared to like these sweeping arc shots, which, whether they mean to or not, give you a sense of safety. Every time there's like an establishing shot that's perfectly lit, that's a pressure release. You get to take a breath in. There's not a lot of that in here because of the film stock, which I think is really cool.
That's really interesting, and I think you're onto something. I feel like I've been trained in this era of found footage films that they look like this, and in found footage films, the character that I'm often worried about the most is the one holding the camera, and that's the unsettling thing you get with this film too. Like, I'm a little bit worried about whoever's holding the camera because this feels so rugged and raw.
They've really convinced you, so even without reading like the press releases of them actually finding this place, they really have convinced you that they've gone into this series of buildings. They spend the time showing you like, okay, let's go through here, and Paul Guilfoyle's giving them the tour, and it's laid out like a bat, etc. When I was reading about the production, they were saying, well, there were actually huge parts, most parts of the buildings were unfilmable because they were actually dangerous. So they've still gone through and like still created this space, but when you're in the film, it's like, okay, this makes total sense. And then the crazy thing about it is that as oriented as you are around where the space is and where this room is in relation to the parking lot, etc., by the end of it, it starts to feel like this liminal, like impossible space, like in The Shining or in Darren Aronofsky's Mother or something, right? Where like when you try to piece those together, they don't work. But we have been shown how it does work, and by the end of it, we've completely lost our minds. Like, where is this for anything?
So just to get out of the way, and then I want to ask Kyle in particular a question, maybe not quite next, but because there is a fair amount of ambiguity towards the very end of this movie. There's a big certainty and then a big ambiguity that has to do with the Book of the Vampire and the overall framing device. But beforehand, what I wanted to just bring up is, what is the walking wound going into this is that Gordon is terribly overworked. They're losing money. His baby has an ear infection. Earlier or later in the film, Phil dimes the fact that the baby was his wife's idea. Like, he's at his end. And then, of course, the denial of death is you eventually find out what happens after that very first tour. What the twist of the movie is that, and we're just in spoiler territory 1000%, is of course that Gordon went home and because of a terrible accident ends up killing his entire family. And then pretty much we get a clue fairly early on, if you want to look at it that way, that he just moves into the insane asylum and is there the whole time. But he's talking to his wife on the phone. I mean, that's complete denial of death. And then the repression is also both Gordo and Mary Hobbs, the framing device, or the Book of the Vampire, are taken over by violence after repressing their feelings. Something else steps in and takes it over. So, did you guys catch one of the clues about when we maybe learned that Gordo had moved in? Did you see the peanut butter bottle?
Yeah, I like that. That's what a creepy, the creepiest peanut butter bottle of Jif in the entire cinema canon.
If you don't mind, Pete, if you send us a picture, share a picture of 1144. There's the Jif bottle.
Oh, there it is. It's right there.
That is the day when he goes in. He's coming home after the tour. Those are the
Chekhov's peanut butter.
those are the flowers. Oh, honey, flowers. That's so nice. And that's the same Jif bottle. He just brings it all back into the thing.
And just leaves it in the middle of the hallway.
Leaves it in the middle of the hallway. One of the scariest, and then I want to go to the question to Kyle, and of course to everyone else. One of the most horrifying, it actually bridges the gap for me, is how Josh Charles? Nope. That's the
Lucas.
Guy.
Josh Lucas.
The idea of being lobotomized and being so scared and confused and just walking these hallways for
Right.
days at night in the dark. I can't. That has never gone away from me, because he's making good distance. He's up and down some part of him, and he's just, of course, repeating, "What are you doing here? What are you doing here?" We find out what that means, but I've never been able to shake that as someone who is fascinated and scared by the dark and new places and getting lost and being confused and being lobotomized. Those are my top five.
Not a fan, being lobotomized. Yeah,
So,
he's
but
the first victim who ends up being the last victim, right? He's the first one to disappear and then the last one to die. It's
pays the
and the
biggest
unanswered
price.
question: who put the sunglasses on him?
Mary Hobbs?
I guess it's Mary
Simon.
Hobbs. Could be Simon,
Simon did it,
So what did you think? And I want to start with Kyle, if that's okay. Did you like the whole Mary Hobbs session day by day conceit? And then what do you think about it when Simon finally shows up?
I thought that was such a great way of giving exposition. As someone who creates audio drama and enjoys audio drama, to have an audio drama playing alongside and in between this movie, that was such a great way of doing it. And it's almost like there's another movie that we never got to see. As later on today, we're going to be talking about another, like a prequel. Essentially, there is a prequel out there of this session and what happened there. And it was such an interesting thing of when you get to the end and you see all that stuff and you start to go, because when they came in down here, like why that box? Why did he do, like this is the box again? And then it turns out if you choose to believe in sort of the supernatural side of it, it was like the ghost essentially was pushing him towards this to sort of put all these things into motion. But that's, and as they're sort of jumping from that to the end, the idea that they found a way to have their cake and eat it too, that you can read it as stress and asbestos and isolation were the cause of all these things, or you can choose to believe that there was a ghost of a crazy person with multiple personality, or whatever, however they would say it back then, that has taken over and is reenacting these Crown of the Four. The fact that you could do either one of those and they both work and they both are satisfying was kind of amazing.
Oh, great. Okay, good. I was wondering if that would
for this movie especially. This is one, like, as opposed to Kynan, this is a movie I intentionally stayed away from because of David Caruso. I saw David Caruso in Jade and never trusted him on the big screen again.
He's very interesting here because like we need to both think that, okay, David Caruso is the sane one and Gordon is insane, and then also be open to the possibility that David Caruso is some kind of crazy sociopath who's arranged all these tiny little things, and Caruso can do both of them very, very well here. Just showing up and going, "Oh, I'm over your shoulder now." Like, oh yeah, that's something David Caruso would do.
And then he ends up, for Gordo, playing a third character. He becomes Gordo's Billy. Gordo's protector, saying you've got to wake up, like you have to understand what you're doing. He plays a lot. I can see why he signed up for this. Kyle, I'm really glad that you brought up the idea of the why this box isn't this convenience, because one of the things that I like that the film does, it makes a psychic tear throughout everybody. When he opens that evidence box, Gordon cuts his finger with his knife, Hank gets dust in his eye, like they all feel this ramification of something has changed and there's no going back from just that one thing. So what do you think about the idea of, because I don't think it's just, Simon isn't saying I am just here for Mary. Simon lives in the weak and wounded. Why did you do it, Simon? Because Mary let me. They always do. So Simon is presenting itself as some sort of evil entity. But do we think it's just the evil entity that potentially lives in anyone?
Well, that is an interpretation that I've read that I don't think I fully buy. But the idea that this Simon character is a genius loci who is a spirit, like, of the space, of the building, as opposed to, I don't know if that's really there entirely. But yeah, like it is. I don't know. Well, you all seem to like that better than me. So what do you think about all that?
Well, wait a minute. I'm trying to understand what we're coming down on here, because I feel like, the fact is he goes home and he kills his whole family.
Right.
In the and that's not in the facility. So are we saying that Simon had already wormed its way into his psyche after that first trip? And
well, he
I
did.
guess that's maybe why I'm not a fan of this.
Talked to Gordo during that first one when he sees the wheelchair, and we see Gordon, and then during that same thing, you can hear me. Like they've already made contact.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
To a certain
That
extent,
was
whether there's
during the tour
or not, it's during that first tour that Gordon is the weak again. That sort of half-assed thesis that I'm talking about. A weakened Gordon is an open vessel to be potentially infected. If this is like an actual demon or just the demon that potentially lives in all of us. One of the things that I also think is really interesting, I don't have a take on it, but I wanted to ask you guys, do you remember who hears Simon's session 9?
I don't think anyone does. Yeah.
Right.
Only we do. He goes outside to refill stuff. It's only we get that. Is that interesting? That no one hears Simon except for us. It's the one time when there isn't a direct viewpoint from one of the main characters.
He turns on the generator and it's already playing and he's not there to hear it. Yeah.
That gives it more of a feeling to me of this isn't just a internal evil, that this is a force that is out there. Because if it's powerful enough to just exist for us, the viewers who have never been in that building, that's a pretty powerful force. I just think that's interesting. It's a really cool point.
That's really cool.
So is session 9 the ring tape? Right? Like
I don't think so. I think that was more just like the exposition, the last piece. That was end of Sixth Sense kind of thing. Like it was sort of like, oh, okay. Then you could draw the line all the way through, and especially his final voiceover where he's sort of describing himself as sort of a hopping from person to person.
Right. He says she needed someone to help her. So I introduced myself.
Yeah.
And I told her to cut it up. Skipping ahead, there was a lot of blood, Doc, so much blood, but Mary wanted to do it. So she did it. So there's a real connection between, it's almost just sort of like letting, if you want this power, I will enter you and give you this power to do something that seems inconceivable, but only if you kind of want to do it. Only if you're at your wit's end.
You have to ask nice.
If you're afraid, if you're afraid of getting caught. Now that we find what's his name, Josh Groban walking around. What's his name?
Lucas.
Josh Lucas.
Yeah, Josh Lucas.
But man, would I watch the hell out of a Josh Groban movie with this story. The other thing that I think is interesting about it, if I could just go back to the non-haunted parts that are also haunted in their own way. This movie is like littered with portraits of men who are emotionally stunted and fragile. Like all of them are broken in their own way, whether it's the young dude bro, like they all have a thing and they're denying their own vulnerability until ultimately they're consumed by it. And I think that's really really interesting. They're all guilty of something. Nearly all of them are hiding from some level of accountability from one another and from outside. And I think that sets up like it's not just a single character who is a victim here in their own, in the most horrific way. They're all victims themselves. Of themselves, and this movie is like their time together at Danvers is the collision of all of these incredibly frail, sort of fragile egos and
masculine egos, which is
masculine
such a great
egos.
Point. Yeah, that they're not asking for help. They can't ask for help. The one time when Gordo says to Phil, like, "I want to go home," and he just seems like a little child, and the first thing Phil does, he just looks at him and says, "Let's just get the job done."
Yeah, we're just gonna get the job done.
That's what men do.
Yep.
Yeah, those scenes are so well. I think they're even more of my favorite than the horror stuff. It's really super interesting. I mean, in a different genre, I mean, this could be like Chloe Zhao movie or something. I'm just like watching people like do this job, that I've never given any thought about this.
I know. I can't tell you how excited I was when I found out they were asbestos removers. I'm like, I'm about to learn about asbestos removers. I was so excited. I was like, oh, like this is about painting. It's not about like interior design. Like, ooh, like process. Sign me up.
It's practically Jane Campion's session 9.
Last two things I wanted to say, and then we can either move on, or if other people have stuff to say. I like the idea that, much like Gordo, this is a very obvious point, but the structure from the outside looks great. Inside, it is completely disintegrating and rotting from within. And also kind of like that when they're describing asbestos, quote, already an itty bitty piece of this S might be have gotten in your lungs. It incubates in your lungs. Tissue begins to grow around it like a time bomb. That's what's happening to these characters. And that's really what happens to Gordo right after that first tour. He's already such a ticking time bomb that he's infected. They're all infected right away, which is...
Do you get it? The hospital is a lung.
Yes.
A bat lung. Do we have anything else that we want to say about this?
Shout out to Empire Records, because the young guy is Warren from Empire Records.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I know him from
Nice.
Welcome to the Dollhouse.
Yeah, he's been done a ton of stuff, but that was when I saw it. It had just been, I had watched it on Rex Manning Day, and it was a weird twist of fate. I was like, hey.
That's where he ended up. Okay, so then we will move on to the second of three movies. This one was one that if you remember from the last episode, I was very careful in making sure you watched the correct one, because this was one of three movies that came out around the same time, where they were sequels that ended up being prequels to movies. The original movies were very drab and by the numbers, and then brilliant people came in, somehow were given the keys to make prequels, and they outshone the original movie so much. So this is Ouija, Origin of Evil, directed by my personal hero, Mike Flanagan. The pre-haunting going into this, of course, is the family is suffering from a loss of a father/husband. And the denial of death involves partly that the mother will do anything that she can to talk to her father and to let her children talk to her husband. And that makes them incredibly open to trickery. That's the denial of death, and part repression is what I would like to posit. What did you guys think about this movie? And of course, I keep forgetting to say axes to grind. It doesn't sound like there's been too many axes.
We haven't done any axes yet.
So far, so good.
My axe to grind is that Mike Flanagan makes this poor actor, who's the lead, the mother, Elizabeth Reeser, look so much like Carla Gugino. And then when he finally works with Carla Gugino, which is like the next year, he never works with Elizabeth Reeser ever again.
What's up? Well, that's an aspirational hire.
Which is interesting because Flanagan is such an adopter. Like,
everyone's part of the family, right?
Yeah.
But he found his Carla Gugino and never looked back, I guess.
Wow. But in her defense, if you could get Carla Gugino,
of course we always.
I think this movie you had already set it up that we had to watch this movie and not the other one, because the other one is bad. And in fact, I think you said specifically, please don't watch the other one, even if you want to, real bad, don't watch the other one. And I didn't. But as a result, I had, I think, unnaturally low expectations going into this movie. I was like, oh, we're going to watch a prequel sequel? Okay, that's fine. And I was kind of blown away. Like, this is like such a swing. Flanagan making a studio horror film and critiquing the genre all up and down the street. I thought was really, really great. The retro sort of 60s aesthetic,
cigarette burns,
the artificial sort of real changes.
The old Universal logo and title card.
Yes, absolutely. It is. It looks like a lost film from the era, and I think I think it's as much a really interesting way to play with kids' board games as it is to be a love letter to the classic horror. Are you guys watching The Studio right now on Apple TV? Yep. The first episode has the thing I couldn't let go of, which is we're going to bring in an incredible director and he's going to make a movie, but it's a branded deal. And the brand deal is Kool-Aid. So we got to find a story.
Scorsese making a movie about.
So they find Scorsese, and he has this idea. I know how the movie I want to make with your studio is Jonestown. And so the studio head is like, this is perfect. This is the ultimate brand tie-in for Kool-Aid is the Jonestown story. I could not help but think about that, like watching this movie, that Ouija happened to be the perfect brand deal for Mike Flanagan to just go to town. It was a real celebration.
And I remember when this deal was made when they were like, Hasbro has sold 3 different properties, and everyone was like, the world's over. But this one was the good one. This was the Pirates of the Caribbean instead of like the Country Bears or whatever. Because it was always 3 brand deals. It was always 3 pictures, 3 properties, and always one of them blew up and the rest were a disaster. So just to give you a basic idea, we don't have to go into it, but the original movie was a bunch of teens use a Ouija board and communicate with a spirit named DZ. And they learn that DZ has her mouth sewn shut. Then, like in The Ring, they help her and find out too late they were not supposed to. And it's very generic. The hanging jump scare from this movie, when the boyfriend comes down, that is a callback to the only scare that works in the entire first Ouija movie. It's the cold open where they play with the Ouija, and then there's this long shot where she goes upstairs and then just comes down. And even Flanagan dupes it and makes it even better with that weird ping pong yoink, grabbing the girl and taking her away. So, but it's fun that he sort of had that idea. So one of the reasons that this movie has such a downer ending, which I desperately love, is Hasbro said, which seems very alien. They were like, you have to end it so the original one makes sense. And so he's going back and telling the story of this family that we were sort of talking to. And so like Lin Shaye at the end in the post-credit scene, did you guys see there was a post-credit scene at the end of this movie? That's the daughter. Lin Shaye is the only person that is in the original one because she's like has been taken over, and she's like, you got to go help that girl with her because now she's with the devil stuff. But again, it's just not very good. But the fact that he had those amount of constraints and came up with this story, I think, is even weirdly more impressive.
Yeah, the movie does this really interesting fake out where you're with the mother, and I wasn't really prepared that the 15-year-old daughter really becomes the not just the hero, but just also the main character and the one whose sins we're sort of experiencing. So I wonder what that would have been like if I had seen the original like you told me not to, but I didn't. I listened to you, Tommy.
I don't think you would enjoy it. Like you would be. It would be more fun to watch maybe now, but you'd just be so let down by every part of it because there's just no real. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of craft there. It's a very teen scary. It's one of those movies that we were just pumping out. One of the things that I love so much about this is I like the gatekeeping that this movie does about talking to spirits. That the rules and the societal rules and poo-pooing that we put on them, because they are, faking these things. They're faking connecting to the dead. But, she says, we tell them the truth. We just need to help them believe it. We're letting them know what they need. We're helping these people. And some people are like, boo, you guys are quacks. And that's not right. And yet we pray. There are people that are praying to spirits, and that's totally accepted by society. Either way, you are talking to the dead. Maybe if you want to draw the line as, can the dead talk back to you? But that's the whole thing. I mean, the little girl isn't praying to God. The little girl is praying straight to daddy. She's going right to the source. And I love the idea of having these different levels of communing with the afterlife and deciding which are okay and which science and which are just completely sometimes mandated by institutions that you have to do these prayers. Did you guys
like Hasbro?
Exactly. Was there stuff that stuck out to you guys? I know I just sort of shot a couple things from my hip, but
when I first was watching it, I was worried this was going to be sort of the new horror, like the new horror, because I'm not afraid of CGI, and so every time they do girl with giant mouth, it's like, yeah, okay,
sure.
And a lot of a lot of very hardworking CGI artists spent a lot of time taking this kid's head and stretching it. Cool.
Okay.
But then having her actually running along the wall stuff was actually really effective because you could tell they really did it.
Right.
So
there's a lot of practical.
Yeah, that was, I liked the more 70s he did, the more effective I thought it was. And my only thing where I sort of really checked out on it was kind of the hat on a hat on a hat of it's not just that it's a ghost. It's not just it's an evil doctor ghost. No, evil doctor Nazi ghost. I was like, I was okay with evil doctor. You didn't also have to, but okay, sure, the worst possible ghost you could have. But And so I think for me, the most terrifying image then too is like that weird black guy with his hand down her throat. Ooh,
Yeah.
Yes.
man, like. Ooh.
Yeah,
Does it
I
make
think maybe to your point though, Kyle, like or to Tommy's idea of like the space, right? Like the space has accumulated this evil. So yes, he's an evil doctor, but he's also a Nazi. He's also a ghost. He's also, but they end up here, like it's like the part of the couch that collects all the coins or something, right? And it's everything about this house seems to bioaccumulate, and it gets like bigger and more evil. So yeah, now this family moves in with their potentially minor sins, right? Because they're the kind of sins that we, as you were saying, Tommy, also are guilty of judging other people's spirituality and divorcing and etc. And it just maybe just enough sin that it tips over the house and like, okay, now it's the house's time. we've got to take over this and go crazy here.
And it is not just the during the flanologue where you learn about the devil's doctor and Marcus, because it's not really the devil's doctor that is haunting the place. It's Marcus. It's the victim. And if you remember, he says it talks about being in the dark with the others, voiceless, cold, insane. And it talks about the other things in the dark, things that were never human, things that were taking him over. So much like Session 9's Simon, it's also revealing there is another force that, given the right temperature and just the right kind of seasoning, is ready to jump in and give you power, horrible, terrible power. What does it say? She's part of the walls now. And she told me the most wonderful, awful things, that there are things waiting in the dark for us, that again, it's giving Marcus, this person that was rendered completely powerless, this horrific power to then play a trick on this family who, in a way, he cons the family in the way that the family has been conning all of their customers.
Right.
Yes. And just like their customers are open to being conned, so is the family, right? Like the entire thesis of this thing is it's sort of Babadookian, right? It's like when we don't process our grief, then we're open to being haunted by it. And Alice doesn't want to move on. And so opens the door to just become a conduit to the evil that's already there.
That's the repression. That's the denial of death. That's exactly the idea. When she says, I just wanted to talk to daddy again. I just wanted you to be able to talk to daddy again. You can't, you're not allowed to talk to daddy again. But if you continually refuse that idea, and don't deal with your feelings, then you have a Babadook that you have to feed bugs.
Exactly. You have to feed it dinner. The way that these kids become in their own way, like vessels of evil because no one is protecting them, because especially because, oh my God, mom just so deeply wants to talk to dad again, cannot focus on protecting these kids from their own grief and helping their kids grasp their own stuff. So
she
it's like
her daughter out of school.
Yeah,
she's not doing basic parenting,
and enables her to actually, fan the flames of that particular grief. It's like, these are the kids taking the keys to the car in the middle of the night and going joyriding, right? Like they're just out of control, and I think that's one of the things that makes it really interesting to me.
Right, but that key moment where the movie does shift and become Lena, the daughter's movie, is where she's calling Alice, the mother, out about that,
Yes.
and saying like, this is exactly what you do. You are being conned. You are the one who's falling into this, and it's affecting your daughter, right? Like becoming the mother in this situation, but also becoming the one who could see what the original sin of all of this is. And I really like that scene, and then also pairing it with Henry Thomas's character, the priest, and this date, not a date that he takes the mother on, right? And she's trying to explain herself of like, wouldn't you want to talk to your dead wife, and he's like, well, I kind of already do, right? I don't need to have it in the way that you do, because I have not just my faith, which is part of it, but just my connection with her, right? Like we had a solid relationship, and we still have a solid relationship, and that seems so much to flabbergast her, right? Like why would you want a Ouija board? They're only $7 by Hasbro, right?
Who blows out all your candles?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, he's an interesting character, like as a weird sort of symbol of failed institutions trying to contain horror. he kind of meets just the right sort of Flanaganian end. And he's well intentioned and just is never enabled to meet his own expectations. He can't meet the moment, and he doesn't read the room.
And he comes to, I mean, he becomes possessed and then meets the same end as like Father Karras.
Yeah.
In The Exorcist. So much of this movie is such a love letter to so many other, like when he shows up, that is a straight out of Exorcist light coming down from the window shot, which I always love. One embarrassing thing that I wanted to share, because y'all are my friends, and it's not like we're recording this, is, you know, the three rules are never play alone, never play in a graveyard, and always say goodbye. I hadn't watched this again. I've watched it many times, but I haven't watched it in years and years. And I was like, oh, she's playing in a graveyard. The guys are going to think this is so smart. And then later when it was like, we played in a graveyard. I was like, yeah. I thought that was going to be my like bright shining boy moment. And instead, she just pulls it right out.
Oh man. Well, I think this one for me was a definite win. Another one that I really, really enjoyed. I unlike Kyle, I celebrate CGI stretchy mouths. And so I didn't have as much as a problem with that. I think that what ties the mouths together, right? The wide mouth, the gaping mouth, the sewn shut mouth, as like a tool for speaking with the dead, being silenced, letting evil in and out. It's a gateway. The mouth is a gateway. I thought was really great. I do have really effective sewing the mouth shut. I have a real problem with that. And at the end, when she's sewing oh my God, you guys, the sewing of the mouth, I can't watch that stuff. I don't like to watch.
I was like, this is PG-13, but then it's such a psycho, nothing ever makes contact anything. It's really well done. It's this and then this. And
But it made contact in the old noggin.
That's
the power of film, baby.
This feels like a rough PG-13. I'm surprised. Just having the little girl talk about what it's like to be strangled and all. I mean, it's a very dark movie, especially with the poster being. The poster was just a small girl sitting at a table with no demons, just at the Ouija table, and that's it. So. Apologies to the parents who thought this is clearly a PG-13 kids movie.
It also teaches you how to make your own Ouija board at home by pricking your finger and getting enough blood out there to right onto the carpet. Yeah,
that's so great.
Which has never occurred to me, and now we see it.
And now you have a new hobby.
Now I have a new hobby.
I say, and this isn't a hot take because I think it's pretty well established now. But Mike Flanagan can really get amazing performances out of people. Like. Everybody in this,
kids,
and that girl is incredible, and like from a long tradition of spooky little girls, which probably could be another thing we do on here,
right?
That she found her own way to do it, and just with the simplest things of just the slow turns and just her sitting on the couch was creepy. Like,
and she gets
that's good filmmaking right there.
It really, even without like the eyes being all whack, and she gets exponentially better. She was also in another prequel that was better than the original, Annabelle Creation. Annabelle was the doll. Creation takes place at a orphanage, and she's one of them. And even from this movie to that, she loses some of that Disney kid. Well, I don't know what I think. I guess I think that maybe Daddy will be there. It's just a very child actor way to try to sound natural, and she loses that. And by the time she's in like Hill House, by the time she's outstanding in Fall of the House of Usher. She's grown up more, and she's great. She's one of the kids.
Oh wow! Okay,
yeah. She's only played in flashback, but So, so you can see her jump, which is great.
I just want to call out that, like, I didn't realize just how much of a jump that exists between Ouija and Ouija Origin of Evil. Ouija is a 6% as of today on Rotten Tomatoes, and Origin of Evil's 83.
Yeah, I wasn't being precious. Don't watch.
No.
This is not like a warning, like, don't come in the house. I really want them to come in the house. Don't bother.
And I'd say if you don't know, we don't have to go. But what were the three things that, like, that Warner Brother or that Hasbro won? So
it was Ouija, Battleship, and it's a great question.
I was gonna make a Battleship joke earlier, but I couldn't remember what the third. When you said there was a third, I was like,
Battleship was rough.
Battleship was really rough, and what a weird cinematic universe it is to have this movie and Battleship in the same.
Oh, Ari Aster's Shoots and Ladders. Just kidding. I don't know. That's a great question. I should know that. I don't
Okay, that's fine. You
remember.
can cut all this out.
And there's a very good chance that it didn't come out because this movie did pretty well. Battleship was kind of a mess. Like the bloom when people started doing these deals. Well, I'm not telling you guys know all this. Like everyone was so excited. This was the new Wild West, and then movie after movie after movie bombed. And it was always just like one of three. It was just really Pirates is the one that took off. Okay. So then should we get to the third? My idea was originally, and I know that all of these were new to some of you, which is thrilling, maybe depending on your thoughts. But the others, the other two are a little bit less known. The others, and I'm interested to see if you guys feel like it holds up, is traditionally considered a stone cold classic. It was an enormous hit when it came up. Say the director's name again.
Alejandro Amenábar or something like that.
He wrote, directed, and did the score, which is always like a real Sean Bakery kind of triple regret kind of a thing. I think it's a very obvious thing. The pre-haunting, the walking wound is the loss of the father/husband. And then, of course, the fact that you learn that she has killed her own children before the movie begins. The denial of death is it's the killing of children, death of the husband, and the fact that none of them are alive. That's a pretty good one. And yeah, the repression is she went crazy in that house. That after the war, the husband left, servants left, she went crazy, and she was in a prison where her children, if you believe it, legitimately could not be exposed to sunlight. And so she was just in a prison and completely lost her mind. Like a real cowardly custard. Yeah, so what did you guys think about this? Who had seen this before?
I saw it when it came out. Saw it in theaters.
Pete?
Stone cold classic.
This was your big one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, Kynan, let's start with you.
Yeah, I had not seen it. Like a lot of movies, I'm too afraid to see.
Sure.
With twist endings, the twist ending was ruined for me by the time I, 24 years later got around to seeing it. But but that was true of The Sixth Sense for me and The Usual Suspect, like everything you could possibly think of, Planet of the Apes. But this one, the ones that work like that, it still works on a first viewing of it. And then the specifics of what is going on and why it's going on were still mysterious to me. And I found it really lovely. And the performances by these two women, Kidman and Mike Flanagan, are just really, really strong. Kind of very similar to Session 9, going back and forth constantly of like, who's the weird one here, right? Who's the maybe they're both crazy bad people, and then they're both just wounded nice ladies. It turns out at the end, and was really, really, really taken with it.
We'll go to Pete last because it's a stone cold. What did you think?
I was curious to also see if it holds up because I'd only seen it the once.
Yeah.
And then now going
back
in
the theater.
Yeah, I saw it in the theater. Yeah, I saw it in the theater when it first came out. It was like swept up in the whole Nicole Kidman mania because like this was like when she was like a grade A top tier movie star. But it's like she could open a movie kind of thing. So it was more going in because of that rather and also the fact that it was ghosts. But now going back and being able to watch it, knowing what I know, so like with this is like to see like, oh, okay, here's how they pull the strings, and I was like so confused for the first part of it. I was like, but how is she making tea? Like how are they all of these things along the way that they're just so domestic that I'm like, but they're ghosts. Like how are they getting dressed? Like I like all these little things along the way, and I had forgotten then that there is a Book of the Vampire, there is a big exposition dump at the end. And I was like, oh, okay, I forgot. Like, I kind of thought there was like, you had like I had in my head, like it had Mandela affected myself that there was a picture of of her and the children dead.
Instead of the servants?
Like Nicole Kidman and the kids. There was like a picture of them, but that doesn't exist. Like that's not in the movie. But like having them do the seance and
the automatic writing.
Yeah, exactly. And then having her like sit down and like actually lay out, oh, this is what happened. It was like, oh, okay, I'm really glad that they actually explained all the stuff as opposed to just having you have to figure it out yourself. So yeah, I thought that actually like once I sort of had to sort of surrender to the movie a little bit and stop trying to watch the moves.
Sure.
And then I was like, oh, okay. And then I sort of like glommed onto the three servants as sort of like watching from their perspective of like that, and also the fact that she was just a terrible mom, like in what we get to see. I mean, obviously she murdered her children, so like that's pretty top tier evil.
He was a real Gordo.
Just like the lessons of just like this sweet little boy, and she's like, tell me about limbo. And it's like, wow, she was like psychologically torturing them before they were dead, and now she gets to continue doing that after they are.
She's a Nicole Kidman character. She's a Big Little Lies.
Pretty much.
Nicole Kidman.
Sometimes in that house, heartbreak is beautiful. No, wait, what does she say? I don't know what the line is.
Heartbreak feels good in a place like this.
Feels good in Victorian mansions like that. Peter.
Yeah. Hi.
Not a fan?
No, I love this movie, and I think that I want to see the version before they added the CG children and Nicole Kidman, because they're all green screen, right? I mean, because they're ghosts. Total green screen fest. A lot of CG. The only thing that would make this movie better is if the house was actually a 2025 wilderness preserve surrounded by wood. That's the only thing that would improve it. I think that I think it's watching it repeatedly, it still works, knowing the gambit. I feel like it still holds up for me. Even the stuff that really starts pushing you have to be aware that things are not right now. When Doctor Who comes out of the fog, oh my God, I'm still in it. I'm still totally in it. And I feel like all of the tricks they pull work, right? Light and darkness, the kids' photosensitivity, total red herring. But still, you know what? For the metaphor, it works. The truth stays in the dark to survive, right?
Well,
That's
you're
fine.
safe in the dark, and light is the enemy. And it's only when the light comes in that, because you're trying to desperately stay in the dark.
Right,
She can't know what the truth is because the truth is too horrifying.
Right. It also has these wonderful sequences where you're in very bright places, but you're terrified. It's totally on its head. And it's not like I'm not saying it's easier. Turn off all the lights and it's scary, but it must be harder to engineer that somehow in these beautiful Victorian rooms with these flowing white sheets and things. But it is as scary as any of the other scenes we've seen this week in the dark.
And this has one of my most scary visuals of a creep visual, not really a jump out, but when she's going through the house room by room searching for the people, and there's the face in the background that then is revealed to be a painting. I've seen this movie 19 times, and it came on, and I was like, I think it's so expertly done. It's amazing. Sorry, Pete.
I think this whole thing is like, we're talking about haunted places, right? The fact that the house is such an able stand-in for her fractured psyche, right? That locking doors behind her everywhere, just the compartmentalization of the things that she's terrified of as represented by the locks and keys, I thought was really cool. The silent rooms, the hidden, like all the hidden memories that even she doesn't quite remember, the deeply suppressed guilt, and finally, like seeing her own daughter as the old lady in the shroud or the veil was wonderfully terrifying.
Right.
I thought it was just
sometimes
great.
you have a haunted house like in Wuthering Heights or something, like the building is old and and now you're dealing with generations of people who live there and what it's like to live in this old house that is a terrible place. And here we start with, that's where we think we are. But then, yes, we figure out that, well, she's made it this way. Like there's nothing actually wrong with this house. The way that Fiona Flanagan thinks of it, it's a lovely house. It's a beautiful house, right? And
the best days of our lives.
Best days of our lives, yes. And it's Kidman who has turned it into a haunted house again before she's become a ghost, before there were any hauntings. She's turned it into a place that, of course, you would go mad there by yourself, cut off from the world. The Germans would cut off our electricity all the time, so we just learned to live without it, as opposed to rebuilding and like living like we are in 1945.
Right. And
6 years before I Love Lucy comes on the air, for God's sakes. Like
you're not. She only would have held on.
Yeah. You're not in the
the chocolates on the conveyor belt. She'll be like, put all the pillows away.
Yeah, let's
the quote that she says, silence is something we prize very highly in this house. It's rather difficult to say the least. Some might almost say unbearable. Yeah, there's one of the things that I'm so thrilled about in this movie is it is a thrilling rewatch. When you know everything to know, there's so many, I wouldn't call them clues. There's so many Easter eggs to enjoy, where it's like, may I read some that just sort of popped up? I'm sure that you guys saw these, but the biblical excerpts that Anne has to read as punishment are, number one, banishing Adam and Eve from Eden. I'm sorry. So that's being kicked out of the place that you know and having to do like this. And number two, Abraham preparing to sacrifice his son for the Lord, parent killing a kid, searching the house when she loads the gun and the camera does that really quick yoink. She's having deja vu. About the last time that she really used that gun for real. Mrs. Mills says to Kidman, grief over the death of a loved one can lead people to do the strangest things. Kidman says about Lydia, people don't just stop talking. There has to be a reason. These things are always the result of some sort of trauma. Kidman later says there is something in the house, something that is not at rest. Of course, it's them. I was kind of, and of course, Mills at one point says, I think sometimes the world of the dead gets mixed up with the world of the living. Watching this movie for the 9th time, seeing that line, I was like, Jesus, the balls. like I'm watching it with that to write down these quotes for this podcast. But I was like, at what point do you know if you're tipping your hand or not? It's done, I think, expertly.
I would also add that when the kids get upset, then they start hyperventilating. And so she starts saying to them, and what they keep saying is, stop breathing.
Stop breathing. And then we learn later that she smothered the kids. Stop breathing.
God.
Yeah.
Well, that's a really, I mean, I've been thinking a lot about motherhood today, Wink. And I think her character is so interesting because, as a mother, her identity is inexorably tied to her role as mother. And it gets all twisted by fear and control and loss and all of the things that have happened. But she can't let go of mother to the point where she becomes destructive, and the end of the movie just doubles down, triples down on, now we're Avengers. Now we're just, this is our place.
We will never leave this house.
We will never leave this house.
The only time we get to see her not being mother is when the husband comes home and he's wanting to leave. That great scene where she is sort of like, I stayed, like I did everything I was supposed to do. Like, it's sort of, this was my job. I did everything I was supposed to do. Why do you just get to wander off?
Right. And they appear to make love, and they're in the bed together, and it's really divided straight down the line of the bed, and they have two entirely different performances where Eccleston is just dead. Right, he's just dead. He's just dead with his eyes open, and she on the other side has just made beautiful, passionate love to him. Right, and so it's like, God, I want you to be here. And I don't know, depending on how you would read the movie, right? They're in some kind of limbo, and the reason that he leaves, you're told that he's going back to the war or something, but he has moved on. He doesn't have the same kind of guilt necessarily that keeps him in this limbo world, right? But she wants him to be there with him still, even though he passes on or what have you.
Well, that's interesting. Where do you think he is going? Because he's talking, she asked, like, where have you been? I've been trying to find my house. One non sequitur says sometimes I bleed. So he is still going through something, and then he needs to return to the place where he died. He says he doesn't say the war is still going on. He says, I need to go back to the front.
You need to go back to the front.
Do you think that part of it is just that they were both granted some sort of in the fog meetup? But I don't necessarily see it as he is moving on. I think he's going back to his house.
Yeah. Oh, like he's haunting the trench she died in, or what have you?
That's how I kind of
that's
think of
terrible.
It. It's totally terrible. But I think that everyone, that if you have unfinished business or whatever, you are kind of tied to your area. I mean, these servants are still servants in death and seem happy to do it. They're still honoring their station while being sort of chair-ons, helping people get from one side to the other in a lovely way. But what's one of the last things that Mill says? Can I fix you a lovely cup of tea?
Right.
You crazy person who I spent the last 2 hours slowly telling you that you're dead, but I'm still going to go do it. There's something that doesn't move on.
That's the British class system, I think. Like even when you're dead, you're still the housekeeper, right?
That's
Right.
right.
Yeah,
Even dead,
yeah.
you're still low class. You're still downstairs.
Yeah.
So okay, so
upstairs, downstairs, and really downstairs.
Yeah, right. So there is a scene that we never got to see where the three servant ghosts are there and they watch her murder her children and then kill herself, and they're like, oh, I guess we're gonna have to deal with this, and then they leave and they just hang out outside for a little while and then wait and then like show up because they've been there the whole time. They watched all of it happen. They've been in the house, right?
Are you sure? I
don't know. This is what I'm asking. This my interpretation of this was that they had been there the entire time, and then they're like, okay, I guess we got to play our roles, and they leave the house, go out, just basically hang out outside, and then knock on the door, like, hey, here we are.
I believe their death photo on the back of it. It says 1941.
1891.
1891. We are here in 1945.
Right.
So they were not there with Nicole Kidman. They didn't. Oh, do you mean saw them as a ghost?
As ghosts, like they were ghosts.
Right.
They were they've been haunting this house. They've been haunting this house for her entire life.
So, they're all just taking turns putting on the christening dress.
Yeah, I think Kyle's onto something. It's like, I know you're saying it's kind of funny or whatever, but like, okay, we're in this house. This is our house, and we found some middle ground between getting to heaven and moving on and haunting the place. Like we've accepted our place because we're servants and we're here in this house.
Right.
And like, okay, this family has died, and maybe it's like, well, let's go walk the grounds for a week and come back because like now they've died in some way that's so awful that like they're going to need our help. Right. They're going to be there when we come back.
Sure. That makes sense. My apologies, Kyle. I thought you were saying that they were in the staff.
No, they were not her. Yeah, it was. Yeah, but they sort of
they're around.
Yeah, because even in that first conversation, if you read it that way, it's like she's kind of letting Nicole Kidman like take the lead, like
right.
letting her finish the sentences and stuff too. It was sort of like, do you know what's going on?
Right.
Have you figured it out yet? And so she's just be like, oh, okay.
And then finally she's just like, I'm about at the end of my tether.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's like, oh yes, me too.
I stopped. I finished watching the movie earlier this afternoon, and then immediately watched the first act again. You know, again, even though knowing the twist, but then going back immediately and seeing how it works, right? And Mrs. Mills Flanagan is like she comes in and she seems about to say like, hey, we are here to explain to you this weird week you've had. You are a ghost. And she says, oh, you must be the servants. Come on in. They're like, okay, we're the servants. And then there's this really funny, whatever you need. There's this really funny bit then where then Kidman is saying, I wanted to be sure because we had these servants, all of the servants left in the middle of the night without even collecting their wages. We want to make sure that we have honest and hardworking servants. And Mr. Tuttle, the gardener, is like, we love working. Sure we do. Because they've been living a ghost life, doing ghost stuff. And now
we're going to go rake some stuff.
Yeah, until this crazy woman gets over herself, we're going to have to pretend to be servants again.
That's right, because she says when she's having the revelation with her kids, she says, I didn't realize that what I was doing until you weren't there, and the pillow, I went to bed, I killed herself, but then I heard she says, and then nothing.
Right.
And then I heard your laughter. So her repression came down like a huge brick.
Right.
Instead of realizing my favorite, it's not a particularly interesting shot, but the way that it's done is the close-up, the medium shot of the daughter after she whispers into the automatic writer what her mom did. She goes, and something when she killed you. And the first thing is the daughter going,
right.
Like you think that the daughter's on top of everything and actually knows what's going on. Yeah. She didn't know everything. She just knew that earlier quote, mummy went mad. That's all you know. She won't stop until she kills us. She did kill us. She won't stop until she kills us. That's a outstanding. And then what's the first thing that Nicole Kidman does? She drops her rosaries.
Mm-hmm.
She's letting go of the traditions that she knows. This is not the limbo. These are not ghosts walking around with chains and sheets. Everything is completely being rewritten. And so you have to let go of your faith. You have to change your faith at that point, which is terrifying and fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny. It is like British to the bone, but it's a Spanish film. It's a Spanish production. That's crazy.
Right.
One of the most profitable productions in the country's history. It's not a cult film. It did very, very well.
Right.
Very well.
Yeah, Mr. Tuttle is the most British thing I've ever seen.
Totally.
Yeah, it's the first Goya Best Picture winner, like the Spanish Oscar, with no Spanish in it. Not a single, not even gracias, Mr. Tuttle, or anything like that. Right? Like, not a lick of Spanish in it. Yeah.
Am I dead? Sí,
señorita. Yeah.
For those who saw it in the theater, do you have any memory of how it affected you, given its proximity to The Sixth Sense? Because Sixth Sense was a couple of years earlier, 2 years earlier. And I just want to know if like all of these major sort of living dead twists were spoiled by that movie.
I had read the script for Sixth Sense before it came out because I was in development then. But I was still fascinated because I was able to watch The Sixth Sense with that knowledge and see how he did it. And I remember, I think I've told this story too many times, but that scene when Bruce Willis is sitting opposite the room with the mother and neither of them were talking because clearly they just had a tough conversation. It's just silence. And then he comes in and I go, oh. And Nikki, our friend Nikki goes, what? And I was like,
you'll find out in an hour.
I was like, well, that's so brilliant. It's not really written in the script. You can't really envision that. And I was like, oh, what a great thing. This movie, even with that, they just give you so many things. I mean, they call them the intruders. They call them, you're not safe in your own house. It's masterfully done. I did not see it coming. When he said, when you killed them, and when they're all yelling, we're not dead, we're not dead, I had chills on chills on chills.
That's your question. I think so. I mean, I think that it felt that even though they probably will develop entirely independently, coming that close after was just like, oh, they're just trying to do this again. They're trying to do another twist, another surprise. And I think it probably was lessened by that. When you sort of now take it away from that, sort of the bubble that it was in, or the waves that it put out, I think it's much better because you can see how much craft was put into it and not just a twist for a twist. Because we saw that with a lot of things when it came out with a surprise ending, that all of a sudden all these other movies came out and did it, and they did it badly.
Right.
I just think it's fascinating. I think it's wonderful the way it holds up. This is the real highlight of the list of a list of movies that were all. I enjoyed every one of them.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you guys so much for. Of course.
Can I point out that The Others comes out on August 10th, 2001, which is the same release date. Oh, there you go. The same release date as Session 9. So these are movies that are coming out on the exact same day.
Wow.
Well, I made my choice.
Crazy.
That's not counter-programming, you guys. They did it wrong.
I love that Kynan does so much better research for my episodes. I'm like, what are any of the directors' names? And he's like, I just emailed you the director commentaries. No, it's very appreciative. I saw both in the theater. I don't remember them being, but they're so different looking.
So different.
That, I mean, one seems like old Hollywood, one seems like young, scrappy horror. That's so interesting. I love that. What a great day for cinema for me. Okay. So that is pretty much what I had. I really thank you for watching all three of these movies and giving them a chance. And I'm glad you guys were I was a little bit nervous that maybe my basic idea wasn't going to be great and you were just going to talk about how you didn't like the movies. And instead, you guys never fail to be fascinating and great talkers and thinkers. And I've learned more about these movies, which I thought I knew backwards and forwards. So I'm glad it worked out. Thank you guys very, very much. Location.
Well done, Tommy.
Oh, and who's next? And he already gave a little bit of a winky clue.
I did. I winkied. It's my turn for our next episode of Sitting in the Dark. I want to do something special for May. It is the month of Mother's Day, after all. And that is the time that we celebrate the women who raised us with love and strength and maybe a slightly unsettling glint in their eye. Because in horror, mom doesn't always bake cookies. Sometimes she burns down the house. Our theme is going to be called Because She Loves You. 3 films where the mother figure is not the victim or the grieving widow. She's the threat, the manipulator, the source of dread, hiding in plain sight, except for maybe one.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
Okay.
So here's what we're watching. 2020, a film from, the film is called Run. I don't know why I start with the year. The film is called Run. It's from the year 2020, from director Anish Chaganty. This one is a tight, super modern thriller with just an outstanding performance from Sarah Paulson as the mother, who's taken really protective parenting to some interesting and nightmarish extremes. That's number 1. Number 2, Goodnight Mommy. This is from directors Severin Fiala and Veronica Franz. Has anybody seen Goodnight Mommy, the original, the Austrian one?
I have.
Okay, this is the one we're watching. Okay, Tom has. Tom's in the front of the class.
But I want to see it again.
This is a really interesting slow burn where these 2 twin boys grow super suspicious of their mother after she returns home from surgery and happens to be obscured.
Yes.
And it's a film about, guess what? Trust and grief and horrors that grow between a child and their mother, who no longer feels familiar. So I'm looking forward to that.
And it's
the
a
third
reverse
one,
Ouija. Don't watch the remake.
Please don't watch the remake. Right.
Whatever her name is.
Right. And then there is, of course, Mother. Darren Aronofsky's operatic descent into madness. Great. Stars Jennifer Lawrence, whose home, body, and very, identity are systematically invaded and consumed. So that's the 3. That's the lineup. 3 takes on motherhood, and a reminder that sometimes the most frightening figure in the house isn't under the bed. She's the one who tucked you in.
So for clarification, you said the Goodnight Mommy, the 2014 one, not the 2022 one.
Correct.
2014.
Not the one with Naomi Watts.
Okay.
It is, I will say, the word that comes to mind for that one is austere. Right up until a moment, but it is an austere, slow burn is the word. But I had a really good time. We talked about it on the next reel last year, and it's hard to let go of some of what you see in that movie. So I also will say, Kyle, I had a couple of movies on this list that I explicitly cut because I'd like you to be able to watch the beginning all the way to the end of all 3 of these movies. So I excised some Cronenberg for you.
Oh, okay. I've seen some David Cronenberg stuff.
Okay. All right. They're just, in the space of it. I know Tom's not a huge favor of body horror either. In fact, I don't think any of you really love body horror.
I don't think anyone likes it.
Right. David Cronenberg is a big fan.
So that is mine. We will be back in May. I'm very, very excited for this next set. And I would like to just start talking about it right now, but I'll keep my powder dry. Thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to the show. We sure appreciate you. Don't forget, you can head over to truestory.fm/join if you like the show. We'd love you to like the show. I mean, really what we care about is that you listen to the show and you like it. That's really the point. But if you like it so much that your wallet's just burning a hole in your pocket, head over to truestory.fm/join and become a supporting member. You could watch the show live as we record it. You could ask us questions in the chat room. You could do all the things that you'd like to do and get access to our double and triple secret Discord channels where all the really good conversations happening. So check that out, truestory.fm/join. And on behalf of Kynan and Kyle and Tommy, I'm Pete Wright, and maybe the Crypt Keeper could take us out.
Goodbye, everybody!